And then he says, and then I saw the souls of them, listen, he doesn't say the souls of the dead in general. He says the souls of them that were beheaded for the witness of Jesus and for the word of the Lord, which had not worshipped the beast, nor his image, nor received his mark on their hands and their foreheads, and they lived and reigned with Christ 1,000 years, okay? This is not talking about the church in general living and reigning with Christ. This is talking about the specific people who were beheaded for not taking the mark of the beast. Everybody else is resurrected and raptured. It's just those who were left behind because they weren't watching. This is your partial preterists if they're really saved. They weren't watching. They were left to either take the mark of the beast and go to hell. And if they're going to follow John MacArthur, they're going to be like, oh, I'll just take the mark of the beast and ask for forgiveness later. These are the people who are going to be deceived and taking the mark of the beast, and they have to get their head chopped off, and they're going to get resurrected at the end. The rest have already been resurrected, because if you go back to Revelation 11, he's going to say, the nations were angry, and your wrath has come, and the time of the dead that they should be judged. And you should give your reward unto your servants, the prophets, the saints, that fear your name, small and great, and should destroy them that destroy the earth. Okay, well, what's that talking about? Well, it's actually talking about what happens in Daniel 12, because the corresponding passage to that is going to be that's the midpoint of the tribulation. The two witnesses had just finished their mission, and if you read Hippolytus or any smart commentator, they're going to tell you the two witnesses do their mission, then the resurrection and the rapture happens, and then the Antichrist kills all the rest of the saints and makes war on the saints and the Jews and the rest of the world until Christ comes and destroys his kingdom, okay? So this is where he says, and at that time Michael will stand up, the great prince that stands for the children of the people, and there will be a time of trouble, that's the great tribulation, such as never was before the nation was even to that time. And at that time your people shall be delivered, everyone that is found written in the book, and many of them that sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake, some to everlasting life, and some to shame and contempt. Now, your early church writers, including the Didache, are going to put a 1,000-year gap between those things, because they understand when you get to the Didache, it's going to say, and then will be the resurrection of the dead, but not all, but as it is written, the Lord and his saints with him, okay? So they understand that the resurrection of the raptured saints starts at this time. The resurrection of those who got their head chopped off for not taking the mark of the beast is going to be 3.5 years later. And then the resurrection of the wicked is at the end of the 1,000-year period, which is what John says, but it's also what Barnabas says before John writes the Revelation. So these guys know this because they're claiming it came right from the mouth of Jesus before the book of Revelation was written, okay? And he says, they that be wise will shine like brightness in the firmament, and they that turn many to righteousness like stars forever and ever. And you see it's pointing to 1 Corinthians 15, because that's what Paul is describing here. It was sown a natural body, it is raised a spiritual body. He just goes before that and says, there are celestial bodies and there are terrestrial bodies. Remember, Abraham has promised seeds like the sand of the earth, that's terrestrial bodies, and like the stars of the heaven, that's celestial bodies, okay? And when we get our glorified bodies, we're literally going to shine radiantly white like Christ did in the Transfiguration, and then get caught up into heaven like a bunch of shooting stars. That's what it's going to look like, okay? And so he talks about celestial bodies and terrestrial bodies, because that's another way of saying stars and planets, but it's also a way of saying our human bodies and then our angelic bodies, okay? You find angels and stars correlated throughout the scriptures. And they're going to talk about the glory of the sun, the moon, and other stars, and one star differs from another in glory, so also is the resurrection of the dead, okay? Now, he's saying that because the stars are going to differ in glory based on how faithful and productive we were for Christ. So just like you have some stars that are more prominent in the sky than other, some of us are going to be more prominent than others in the resurrection, okay? So this is all fulfilled in Revelation chapter 11 at the midpoint. And again, 11, 12, 13, 14 are all simultaneous, okay? 11's talk about the two witnesses, the seven trumpets, and the resurrection and rapture beginning. And that's not a mystery, because literally you have the two witnesses resurrected and raptured right in front of you, okay? Chapter 12 is going to go from that resurrection, and it's going to symbolize it as a child being caught up that's going to rule with a rod of iron, because that's the body of Christ being caught up. And then the Jews are fleeing into the wilderness, okay? And then chapter 13 is going to be the image of the beast set up after the Antichrist is killed and yet raised, okay, in the image of the beast. And then chapter 14 is going to be the harvest of the earth, which is going to be the general rapture. So you literally have 4 different symbols for the rapture going. That's how you know they're all simultaneous. You have You have the two witnesses raptured in the time of judging the dead in chapter 11. You have the child cut up to the throne in chapter 12. Then in chapter 13, you have the Antichrist blaspheming those who are in heaven. So he's going to make up a lie about us who have just been raptured and say like we're aliens or something like that to gather all the world to fight Christ, okay? And then chapter 14, you have the harvest of the earth, and you have that final warning against taking the mark of the beast to Mystery Babylon to come out of her, and then you have the harvest of the righteous to the rapture, and then the harvest of the wicked, which is going to be gathering them towards Armageddon, where they're all going to be destroyed.